the second session of our solar workshop with Brad Boston. Just to introduce Brad for you today, Brad founded SunCatch Energy LLC in 2016 with the sole mission of designing and building photovoltaic solar systems. As the solar industry has rapidly grown, so have the services offered by SunCatch. Service offerings include consulting, design, and construction of solar resiliency and efficiency systems. Being a fourth generation electrical contractor and licensed electrician and general builder for more than 30 years, Brad provides customers with a tremendous body of knowledge that's rarely found under one roof. With 10 years of exclusive work within the solar energy market and projects within the federal, state, city, county, utility, corporate, nonprofit, commercial, and residential environments, many lessons have been learned. Please join me in welcoming Brad Boston.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for the kind words. Glad to be here for session number 2. We're talking about solar systems and how you get into the solar business and what it takes to get a solar job. So I'll go right in here, and you'll notice I'm going to start very heavy on what's most important in getting in and getting the job. And, you know, physical fitness is one thing, the ability to lift items that weigh 50 pounds, 60 pounds, to be able to work on your feet all day. Safety is a key component of it. It's the most important thing beyond your technical skills, your mechanical skills, I should say, that an employer is going to be looking for. So as we spoke about in the first session, we spoke about OSHA, which is a federal agency charged with managing standards for not just solar, for all worker safety. We spoke about licensing and certification. There are very few states that actually require you to have any type of licensing or certification to work in the solar field. The exceptions that I know of are Massachusetts and Connecticut. You can't do anything on those job sites without an electrician's license. So certification is not a prerequisite. You can get in here and work. You don't necessarily have to take any classes. You just have to show up with a good attitude and the ability to follow instruction and work safely. So within this working safety, today I'm going to start off talking about, next slide, please. Next slide. There we are. So safety is number one. We're working in a hazardous environment, up on the roof, whether it's a slope roof or a flat roof. You've got to be aware of all the safety protocols that exist. The best way to get a good basic understanding is to get OSHA certification. And that basic OSHA certification, that stands for Occupational Safety and Hazard Administration, is to get an OSHA 10 card. That's a basic 10 hours. In that 10 hours, you'll learn the basics. You'll learn about ladder safety. You'll learn about managing a job site so that you don't have trip hazards. You'll learn about basic electrical safety, operating equipment, how to do that safely. You'll learn about hazards that are involved with excavation. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to assume you found that OSHA training, and there's many different ways to find that OSHA training without paying for it. You know, in this environment where there's a tremendous amount of workforce development program money being put out by the federal government, many nonprofits are involved in getting people certified for OSHA and CPR. So you'd like to have both of those. So let's say you've got your OSHA, you want to go apply for a job. That OSHA is going to make you look significantly more valuable. You know, you've shown some initiative on your own. You might have even saved your employer a few dollars. Not all employers require that you get it, but if you're at a really good place, it's something that you're going to get. So the basics of solar safety start with your protective equipment. And I break that down into two categories. You have your employee equipment, and you have your employer supplied equipment. So as an employee, when you go to the job site, you're going to need to have a hard hat. And that is a hard hat, which on the inside of it will have a label that shows that it complies with OSHA safety requirements. And there's many different types of hard hats. I mean, you can get a $15 hard hat, or if you want to be fancy, you can get a $200 hard hat. But they all do the same. They have a cage inside of it, and I shouldn't really say cage, but what they have is a suspended lid on the inside, so that if anything were to fall on your head, that helmet is able to deflect. It can actually absorb the shock and then rotate on your head so that what hits you slides off. So you wouldn't take that impact direct. The hat would take the impact, and that hat would slide off to the side, front or back, depending upon which way you were struck. And the hard hat is absolutely mandatory. You have to have this if you want to do construction. You have safety glasses. Safety glasses are there to protect your eyes. When you're doing solar construction, you deal with sharp edges of metal. You have metal that could even have metal flakes on it. So you don't necessarily need to be hit by something flying, but just the getting down underneath the solar panels and tightening bolts, you could find small shards of metal that could potentially fall and hit your eye. We have gloves. Gloves are mandatory. We don't just want to keep our hands pretty, but we want to keep our hands from getting cut. We're working with sharp metal. We're working with sharp points. So you want to make sure you don't get any cuts. The cut may not be a big deal, but the infection that comes from a cut is something definitely that we want to prevent. And I would say that when you get gloves, get a pack of gloves. You could get a pack of gloves from Home Depot. We'll look at some prices for all these different items in some more slides, but it's something that you want to have. And that glove actually helps you to be able to work that whole day in picking things up. And most of the gloves that I would recommend have a rubber bottom to them, so that when you grab, you're not exerting your hands as much as you would if you just had to apply pressure to hold things. They help you to be more productive. They let you work easier. So, let me go back to safety glasses. It's good to have dark and clear safety glasses. Reason being, on solar rooftops, you often find all white rooftops. And on a bright sunny day, if you have a clear pair of safety glasses, you will get like a whiteout. You'll feel like your eyes are burning. You have a difficult time seeing, and it just puts you at risk of trip hazards. And having those two pairs of glasses to wear during the day will make your life much easier on the job site. Now, there's one other item you can see here on the slide, and this is an optional item. This is something that eventually you'll want to get one of your own, especially if you're doing residential work. And that's your basic fall kit. And within that kit, you have a harness that straps to your body. You have a anchor point that attaches to the roof, and you have a rope. You just want to get comfortable, and working physically hard all day and working on a slope. The more comfortable you are in your gear, the better you're able to work. Next slide, please. So yes, let's go back to the safety vest. Safety vest, orange or yellow, we call these high visibility safety vests. You want a vest that has these stripes on it that are reflective. You know, that creates a safe stripe that reflects light in the morning when we get to the job very early or we leave the job late. We could have vehicle traffic. We could have forklift traffic. You just want equipment operators to be able to see you, even though they have backup mirrors. If you didn't have those stripes on them, you know, you put yourself at great risk of being impacted by a vehicle. And now we also have our steel toe boots. And I say if people can invest $200 in a pair of Air Jordans, they can definitely go spend $50 on a pair of work boots. And you get what you pay for. So you might start at 50, but you know, if this is a profession you want to be in, you'll notice the people that work most efficiently, they've got good shoes. Maybe they're Red Wing boots, but these boots are $100, $150. You won't be allowed on the job site without a steel toe boot. And we just want to make sure that when we're moving heavy things, if something slips, you don't get toes broken or cut off. So next slide, please. So employer provided equipment, and these things you want your employer to definitely have on the job site for you. So say if you don't have your basic fall protection kit, which you should always wear on a slope roof, your employer would have that supplied for you. And we also have what we call a self-retracting lifeline. That is a attachment that would go on your safety vest. I'm sorry, not your safety vest, your safety harness. So that if you were working on a ladder and you fell on the ladder, that retracting safety line would extend 6 feet and then it would have a shock on it. It provides tension so that you would spring back and forth in the air, but you wouldn't actually hit the ground. So if you're put in a position where you're going to be working on high on a ladder, that's something that you always want to have. It's much safer to use that than the harness with a rope, as there's no trip hazard going up and down that ladder with the self-retracting. You just get up there and you snap it on and you're good. I think I do have a picture of that retracting. Yeah, there it is. This item here, the retracting, a self-retracting lifeline, and it really is a lifeline. I've seen people either on scaffolds or on ladders, and for whatever reason, the ladder isn't supported right, or whatever it's supporting up against moves. You definitely want to have that there. We can go back up one page. And ladders are something that your employer supplies. In your OSHA training, you're going to find out that there's ratings on ladders. Ratings can be based on weight. They can be based on the type of work you're doing. For instance, if you're doing energized electrical work, you can only work on fiberglass ladders. If you were accessing a roof, you know, just purely access, you could use an aluminum ladder. If you're working on step ladders, there's a new type of ladder that's preferred, and that is a platform ladder. It prevents you from getting on the last two rungs on a ladder, and that's typically where people fall on a ladder. So they create a platform that you can only go as high as the platform, but then when you get up to the top of the platform, there's actually handles up there so that you can hold on to those and safely do what you want. Could we go down on the slide, please? Yes, so I don't know how big this shows up for you on the internet. I hope it does show up good, but you can see that those treads on the ladder, they stop in the last 25%. So that's as far as you go. You stand on that, You hold on at the top and you can safely do your work. One more slide, please. First aid kits are something that your employer would provide. And whether you're in a small crew or you're in a big job site where you have a job box, you would have one of these on your job site. Typically for a small crew, it's just something that you keep in the truck. If you're at a big job site, it might be in your job trailer. And I put water cooler here because it's very important to make sure that when working in the heat, you stay hydrated. If it's 90 degrees outside on the rooftop, it may be 115 degrees. The reflectivity of the roof or just the heat that is emitted from the roof, it becomes extremely hot. And as just a tip, I know that we've been on projects where the roof was so hot that if you wore the same pair of shoes all day, the bottom of your shoe melted. So, you know, when you find yourself in unbearable situations on a flat roof, you just get 2 pairs of shoes, you know, you change out and you just work forward. We also have what we call bollards and flag lines. And I apologize, it looks like I left the picture out, but what it would be is a post that holds a flag line. And this is something that you would use on flat roofs. You have areas in which you are not allowed to approach on the flat rooftop, 4 feet or 6 feet, or maybe it's spelled out to be 12 feet, but you just put these passive barriers there to make sure that everybody has a very hard stop on how far they go to the edge. The whole idea of this safety plan, you know, it's not really to save anyone money. It's to make sure that you get home safely. Next page, please. Oh, could you go back up to page, let's see, the price of all of this gear. So one more, please. Okay, so I looked at Walmart and I looked at Home Depot, and the prices for all this gear, you know, to get what you could work comfortably in, if you were to just buy everything but the fall kit, you need a budget of $150. A basic fall kit is at Home Depot, $100. You can find them for less, but I've used the ones from Home Depot and they're very comfortable. They work quite well. All right, we can go down to residential solar installation now. So once you have gotten the equipment that you need to work safely on the roof, you know, you're going to come to the job site and you're going to start off as a mechanical installer. And I'm looking at a person who doesn't have any electrical experience. So if you had electrical experience, there's a good chance you'd come in on the electrical side, but just coming in without any construction experience or maybe experience in other trades, you'd come in as a mechanical installer. And let's take a look at what makes up a residential solar system. So we have, number one, a central inverter or a microinverter. And these are actually the devices that convert the power from DC power, direct current, to AC power. That portion of the job is typically done by electricians or seasoned mechanical installers. The whole idea of becoming a mechanical installer is moving up to electrician. That's where the better money is. They're the people who have to have the most skills. That requires bending conduit. That requires installing the solar inverter boxes on the wall. That requires you to pull wire through that conduit. So you'll find that there's conduit. And what I mean by conduit is that's the actual pipe that comes off of the roof from the solar system that brings the solar power down to the home. the electricians would mainly be working on the wall, and in that on that wall where you have the central inverter and the microinverter, your electricians work under the supervision of a licensed electrician. You know, every job has a electrical permit, so ultimately there's one person responsible, and that person should be providing supervision to whoever's on the job site. And you want to be on a job site that has that supervision, so that as you put your hours in, you'll be able to qualify to take an electrician's exam. As I said before, some states require 2 years of experience, but most require 6. Some even require 8. But as a rule of thumb, we say that after 8,000 hours, you've mastered the electrical trade. So the people who put in the solar panels install the racking system. That's the mechanical portion of the project. So that is the structure that holds the panels on the roof. They install attachments on the rooftop, and those attachments typically have what we call a rail that spans the roof, and they mount the panels onto those rails. As I said before, electricians do the AC wiring, electricians do the DC wiring. Next slide, please. And what you see here is a picture of on the left side, you have a central inverter. On the right side, you have a microinverter. These are common items that you see in residential installations. The central inverter receives the DC power from all the solar panels as a group, an array, and converts it to AC power. The microinverter turns the DC power on a panel-to-panel basis into solar power. So for every solar panel you have that emits DC current, you'll have one microinverter, and they will accumulate a line that comes down to the roof, down the wall, connects to the breaker box, and you have your AC current there already converted on its trip down from the roof. Next slide. So these pictures here, the one on the left, this shows what we use to attach a solar system to the roof. It's not very hard to do. You know, it's something that you need to learn about where you put it and how you put it. You have plans, but you still need to get a good understanding of how a roof is made so that you can find the rafters that you would put the bolts in to hold it down. And on the left, what you see is what we call a rail. And panels would sit on 2 rails, and you'd have a multiple group of modules that would be what we call an array. Next slide, please. So these are pictures of the basic activities that go on a residential installation, or it could even be a commercial installation. So one thing to identify is that the proper name for a solar panel is a module, and more than one module is what we call an array. So on the left here, we have an array under construction. You can see that both installers, they have their safety vests, they have their hard hats, and they have their safety harness, which is affixed to the top of the roof to make absolutely sure that they cannot fall down 18 feet. And you see the solar panels being installed on rails in groups of 2. It really is just the same repetitive process. It doesn't matter whether it's 500 panels or 2 panels. We use the same equipment. We do the same thing. It's just a question of, is it more or less of it, and do you work safe doing it? And on the left, we have a completed array, a very simple array that can be installed in one day with a group of 2 people. Do we have any questions, Alicia? Well, I invite questions. Okay, what equipment, tools, gear besides PPE do I need personally to begin as a mechanical installer that most businesses do not provide, or might I prefer to have? Great question. The equipment has improved in a manner so much that to physically put the solar components together, you typically only need a few sockets and maybe a few hex heads. So as far as that actual mechanical assembly, you don't need a great deal of tools. They make it very easy so that you can wear a pouch and you don't have to feel like it's full all day long. So the basics would be each solar mounting system is going to have a specific type of either a bolt or a hex head drive. You need to have those. You need to have an impact gun, you know, Milwaukee, DeWalt, whatever it is you prefer. You're going to need an impact gun. You're going to need a torque wrench. And every bolt that we install is torqued. And by torque, I mean it's going to be set to a specific amount of pounds of force or inches of force to make sure that we have a system which is tight enough to stay on the roof for 30 years. You're going to need a chalk line, $10 item. You're going to need a tape measure. 30-foot tape measure is what you need. You're going to need a drill, and you're going to need a pilot bit, 3/16 bit, perhaps 12 inches long. And after the safety equipment, that's about all you need. There's not a lot that you have to carry. That was a great question. And we really like to see people have their own tools. You know, it shows us that, you know, you're investing in a future. And some people may not think much of it, but it means a lot when you can see people investing. Even that, you know, $200 investment for your tools, we know this is something that you want to do. And you're the type of person that we're going to put in positions that move up.
And thank you so much. And we actually have another comment from Twitter asking, how many people does it take to complete a residential installation?
It's good to have a 4-person crew. And I would break it down like this. You have an electrician that primarily works on the ground level. You have solar panels that need to be moved to the roof. So it's better to have a crew of 3 in making that happen. As you see on the picture here, it's just fine to have 2 people installing the panels. That 3rd person should be moving in between the electrician as the electrician needs assistance and the 2 technicians that are actually installing the solar panels. So I say 4.
And for that, what does that mean for someone who might be joining a company? How many hours would they be putting in on a typical day?
Now, it depends on what company you work for. Most companies like to have you stay an extra hour as opposed to have you drive back to the job the next day to spend an hour to finish. So, you know, if you're looking to want to leave at the same time every day, this is absolutely not the place. You know, if we're close, we're just going to go ahead and finish the job up and move on to the next one tomorrow. So you really, I won't say have to be flexible within your timeline, but, you know, the business really does require that if you're close, you just stay and finish. And by close, I don't mean you need to work another 3 hours. But if it takes another hour, it means a lot to just get it done that day so you can start the next job the following day.
And is part of that because of the drive time to and from the site?
Well, you know, it's not just the drive time, but it's the effort that you put into getting up on the roof. So driving to the job site is one thing, but once you get to the job, now we're assuming you didn't finish and that's why you're going back. So the day that you left, you had to stop early to put materials back on the truck. The day you return, you have to take materials off the truck. You have to load materials on the roof. Quite often we use mechanical lifts that are strapped on top of the truck. So you'll have to take the mechanical lift off the truck, put it back, assemble it, bring the material to the rooftop. So, if it's an hour that you need to finish, you really just want to go ahead and finish. And, especially if you're starting hourly, what's wrong with another hour of overtime?
And what do you find surprises the most folks who are starting out the mow?
Surprising can be, let me think about surprises, practical surprises. Sometimes your spatial orientation can throw you off. You may be on a roof that's really not that tall, but because the house is on the top of the hill and you can't see the ground, there's some skittishness about, I feel like I'm going to fall, just that spatial point of reference. When that leaves, people who otherwise sometimes may not have any problem with heights can get up there and just be apprehensive. And, I do have to say, if you have a problem with heights, it is definitely not an environment to work in. I've had people, eager, happy, let's go. I have a problem with heights, but I want to work. You can't work safely if you have that fear of heights. So that's something you definitely want to know about yourself. You got to have good shoes. People buy certain shoes because they look good, maybe a sneaker, steel toe sneaker as opposed to a boot. And they get up on the roof and they find out they have stress on their ankle because the roof is very steep, or the shoe just doesn't feel snug on your foot. So, you want to have the right gear, because that's quite shocking to find out that this is what I want to do when I bought some shoes and I don't feel like I could safely work today. Now, this doesn't go for residential systems, but I would say with commercial systems on a flat roof, people may think that because it's drizzling or because it's snowing, we don't work. We actually work. If it's not too cold, we get out there and work while it's a little bit moist. So you just want to know that about yourself. If you have a problem with the elements, you'll have a very hard time doing this work. We just can't work when the sun is shining. We're in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and we're working all year long. If there's a foot of snow on the roof and we can work, we just move the snow to the side and do what we do. So you got to have that ability to deal with the elements, and that can be quite shocking to people.
And dealing with the elements like that, that's a large part of the reason why you have the safety equipment, especially the harnesses and all that, correct?
Exactly. I mean, and even on a flat roof, what we typically do is we have the crew leader go to the job at 7, because if it's really inclement weather, we always send somebody to bird dog it, go check and see what it's like. He'll go up on the roof and he'll actually take a squeegee and test to see if there's ice on the roof. If there's ice, we don't want to work. Nobody wants you to work. It's too easy to fall and get hurt. So yeah, we get out there in all elements, but it's within the limits of safety. We don't just go out and do it because there's a deadline if it's not safe. Having said that, let me also say, since companies do work on deadlines, quite often you'll find that Saturday work opportunities are available. So there's overtime is not a rarity in this line of work.
And for any of our viewers joining us right now, if someone's listening to, what you need for personal equipment and is getting a little bit of sticker shock, is there any advice you'd like to give on, especially for folks starting out, if someone has has been working on a shoestring budget, but really wants to get into solar?
Well, I have to admit, I keep extra helmets. I keep extra glasses. I keep safety vests. I even one time gave a fella $50 to go buy some boots. Not everybody does that, but when you want to get people in, you just can't always say, hey, this is what you have to have. So there are some companies that are like that. If you don't come with your gear, why'd you even come? But there are a few that will help you to get there. But, you've just got to make clear that, you're coming to work and it's something that you're going to stick with.
Definitely. And where do you go to find the equipment that you use personally?
Well, for my boots, I go to Red Wing. Red Wing boots are, that's top of the line. My boots are $200, but I've got people that they start off at Walmart, and as they're getting seasoned, they're like, yeah, these were good for the start, but I really want some boots that can allow me to walk. And if you're on a big job site, you could be walking miles a day while you do your work. So you really want to have good boots. Another good resource for, I won't say another good resource, a good resource for boots is Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply has excellent gear at prices that are unbelievable. They're not everywhere, but there's usually one, on the outside of every metro area. So Tractor Supply is great. I know some people go to Army surplus stores, and if it's good enough for the Army, it's good enough for you. It's good, durable gear. So yeah, that's a good resource. And then Home Depot, for the safety vest, the safety glasses, the hard hat. You may want to start off with a $15 hard hat, but by the time you figure, hey, this is what I actually want to do, you may go on Amazon and buy your favorite sport team hat and go along that way.
So that actually brings me, your comment on the boots actually brings me to something you said earlier. Is there anything people need to keep in mind with, being able to walk that far each day?
The boots are number one. That's why I just can't stress enough how important it is to have good boots. And, you're walking, you're bending, if you're doing certain things where you're on your knees, you definitely want to have knee pads. The fatigue of working all day, a roof isn't a hard surface, but still, you want to have knee pads. Knee pads are $10. You might find that you're working on a hot surface. What people usually do is you use cardboard that's on the job site, or perhaps if you didn't use cardboard, you might have ordered a yoga mat off of Amazon and you've taken it to work with you. Those are the little things that the people who last, they watch the people are there and like, yeah, I'm going to be another one of those people walking down the street with a yoga mat, but I'm going to be in construction clothes. Yeah, getting comfortable on your feet. That's number one. If your feet go, you can forget about the rest.
And that little bit, I'm sure, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
At the end of a long day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And are there any safety things that, especially for rooftop installations, that you see too often ignored on job sites? And not necessarily
what's too often ignored? And I'll use new people because the people who have been there, they tend to reinforce each other. But I would say trip hazards is the number one thing. Cords that are left in a manner, jumbled up, or wires that after being used aren't put back in the reel. Trip hazards would be the number one thing. Electrical safety, people pretty much agree on that. Nobody's trying to get shocked, but that I've pulled all of this wire and I just want to walk away from it and take a break. Well, somebody's going to come right behind and they can fall. And trip hazards are very important because number one, we're working on the roof. And then number two, we're building these systems that are in, solar panel arrays that are in close proximity. So if you fall, there's not a lot of clear areas to fall. You're coming down on some sharp edge, or you're coming down on a solid block, or you're coming down on a pipe. So you just really want to keep a neat job site to maintain safety.
And that's great advice, because I know we've all seen the need for that at different places.
Yeah. Another thing I'll say about looking attractive on the job is that you want to have your materials that you're using in a neat, some type of neat method to arrange them, to keep them. You don't want to be the person on the job who's just got a pile of this over there and 4 of those over there and things just strewn about. You want people to have what they need and really only have what you need. You shouldn't be hoarding. A lot of people like to hoard on the job site. They see people getting screws, they want to get more screws so they can keep screws for the rest of the day. So, you just want to have, good appearances. You want your work area to look intelligent. Tools aren't just thrown all over, nuts and bolts all over. Be very orderly. What we do is repetitive. It's a very repetitive job. So we want to see that things are where they need to be, that you return things where they go at the end of the day. Don't leave your tools on the job. Don't leave your sockets out. Don't leave your power tool out in the rain. Just pride in workmanship. That's what we look for.
And if somebody was coming in for a job interview with you, what would they need to do to set themselves apart, to let you know that they're ready to go in and do a great job?
The safety. If you came with some type of safety certification, that would be number one. Coming in and saying where you want to be, that would not be attractive. Coming in where you fit in, where we can put you. People who come in don't appreciate the level of growth that you can have in this business. But, just take my word for it. We need people who are going to come in and learn everything. And in my case, I've got 4 generations of knowledge. I'm hoping that you take it down the road 4 more generations. So, it's beyond just making money. I want to impart, life skills, the ability to earn a good living for the rest of your life.
And if someone's coming over to you with some of those skills that maybe they learned in a previous career, is there anything that you would like for them to keep in mind as they're moving into solar?
Just come in and learn the system. We don't want people coming in with some friction about how it was done, in Kansas City, but now you're in Maryland. You're in Maryland. This is how we do it. Get the game plan and just move on with it. And that reminds me that traditional electricians and coming into solar, it's a real reworking for them, because they've been trained all their career to bring power into the building. And the notion of how we do things differently to send power out can totally throw them off. Some of them they just can't stand it. It's just irritating to them. So the opportunity is there for that person who comes in as a mechanical installer. Most electricians who've done electrical work all their life, they make good money. So why do they need to change? The jobs are here, and you want to come in as a mechanical installer and become an electrician.
Definitely. And is there anything else that we'd like to really touch on, especially for this safety portion?
Oh, really nothing. I think we've covered it all. Every company you go to, they're going to have things they emphasize. What they emphasize is definitely something you want to respond to. Don't fight it. Your company is watched. It's not just a matter of what your company wants to do. On commercial construction sites, there's people that watch your company. They're safety officers. So, if you walk to the edge of the roof, who you work for is going to get an email. Maybe if not then, they're going to get an email tonight. It's not what they want to hear. So we set up these things, number one, so that you come home from work the same way you showed up to work. And then number two, we just don't want to get nuisance communication from our customer. It makes them lose confidence in us.
Fantastic. Well, I think those are the main things. Do you want, and if it's not going too much over into next week, would you like to touch on some of the safety for like canopy installations?
Yes. When you install a canopy, it's a different safety situation in that you use what we call scissor lifts. They look like the accordions on wheels. That's a job where you would want that retractable. Your rope is going to get tangled up in everything. If you're up high, you could use a retractable if you've got something to hook it on. But while you're on that forklift, no, I'm sorry, not that forklift, on that scissor lift, you still have to have your retractable connected to the scissor lift. It's counterintuitive that you would strap yourself to something that moves, but those are the OSHA rules. So we follow them. You'd have to be secure in that. Yeah, that's about the only difference with the canopy. Now, in the construction of the canopy, we could have big bores in the ground, maybe 10 feet deep, 30 inches wide. So that's a situation where we're very aware about placing barricades and making sure we don't have falls. I've seen people go in 10-foot holes. The people who drill them sometimes, they're so casual with what they do. They're out having a good time, slapping backs, and one guy steps backwards and you just see him disappear.
And even though that's at ground level, are there typically harnesses for while you're boring holes?
Well, when you drill a hole, when you're doing boring, you're not wearing a harness. If you enter a hole, you would have a harness on because you have to have a tripod there to extract you in the event that there was a problem. But, it's just one of those situations where you can't do it so much and take it for granted. You have to always know it might not be the other guy. It could still be you. But that's just complacency. You just get soft on your training.
And that's always important to be very aware while on the job site. And is there anything that you typically do on the sites where you work to make sure that your team maintains that awareness?
Yeah, so every day we have a tailgate talk. We start the day off with the safety talk. We talk about what we're going to do, and it can be quite repetitive, but at the same time, we do the same hazardous acts over and over again. So you can't just block it out. From a higher level in management, for every job site, we have what we call a job hazard analysis. So we're identifying everything that can go wrong as far as, personal safety is concerned. Is there a trip hazard built into it? Is there an excavation that could fall in? Is there, some extreme height we need to go to? And how will you be allowed to get to this height? Do you have to go in an electrical panel? Do you have the proper safety gear to do that? So, yeah, the job hazard analysis, and that's standard throughout the construction industry, not just solar, but every company, it's something that you do every day. It could be as simple as a review about how you use your power tools, your hand tools, and it's all meaningful. You just want to keep people safe while they work.
And I know we discussed this on some of the other safety, but is there anything you wish more people knew or kept in mind in terms of safety while working on rooftops?
Yeah, I would say that at the end of the day, you can't sacrifice everything you've done safe, for your desire to get off the roof and go home. That's when you see a lot of injuries, when people are, either shortcutting or rushing. They feel like I've had victory. I can just do what I got to do and go home. Like, I think with automobile accidents, most accidents are within a mile of your home. So, you can't let your guard down because you're close. You've got to do the same thing you've done all the way until you leave.
And just checking our comments on social media. And oh, good question to close out on. What can someone do to set themselves apart as a safety leader on the job site?
Oh, well, number one is the OSHA. You get that. Once you get that, the advanced OSHA is an OSHA 30. And typically you have one OSHA 30 on every job site. So if you want to be the safety person, the designated person, you get the OSHA 30. It's not what everybody does.
And which one is it that most folks get?
The OSHA 10.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the basic. But the OSHA 30 is a deeper examination, of course, 20 more hours. And most people don't want to do that extra 20 hours. So if you get that, you set yourself apart.
And what's the pay difference for someone who has that extra certification, that extra 20 hours?
Well, you won't find that the extra certification itself gets you more money. You'll find that if you got that extra certification, you're already doing other things on the job site that puts you in a more responsible position. If you come to the job site and you get a 30, you can work with a 10. So that by itself, it doesn't mean a great deal, but you get to put yourself eligible to be in that position to run the job site once you know what you're doing.
And Brad, would you like to give us a little preview of what we'll be talking about next week?
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about solar carports, solar canopies, and we're going to talk about ground mount solar systems.
Awesome. And is there anything else you'd like for folks to know before we close out today?
Come back next week and bring 2 people with you.
And that sounds good. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And thank you so much, Brad.
You're welcome. Always glad to be here.
See everyone next week.
Bye-bye.